Welcome back, Golden Hour. We got the Vermontrepreneurs version going on right now with a one-of-a-kind guest, Mr. Kennon Young.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We're here at the Vermont Gem Lab on Church Street in Burlington, Vermont. It's where you can come and get some fine jewelry work done. And so you've been in this business quite a while now, huh?
This is my 19th year.
Wow.
19th year.
That's impressive. Yeah. What made you want to get into the whole jewelry and gem business?
I lucked out, actually. Both of the high schools that I attended in MMU in Jericho and Salt Lake City, Utah, offered a jewelry course. And it was the one thing that I enjoyed, like, more than even, like, recess and, things like that. So I said, why not? Thought to myself, actually, why not do something that I enjoy in life, Money's good and all, but if you don't enjoy what you're doing, you're going to burn out on it. You're never going to last.
Absolutely.
So,
no doubt. And so it took quite a bit of schooling to get to where you're at, right?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about all your credentials and whatnot?
Sure. When I turned 18, I left Jericho, moved to San Francisco, studied at the Revere Academy of Jewelry Arts. I was there for about a year. Give or take. I then went down to Gemological Institute of America in San Diego, learned gemology, which is how to grade and identify colored stones and diamonds. And then I studied through the American Society of Appraisers, valuation and personal property, which is how to appraise what gives value, takes value, that sort of thing. I spent a year at Champlain College when I got back studying e-business. Got my highest credential, ASA MGA. I think there's just over 60 of us in the world. I got that 5 years ago, somewhere in there, 4 or 5 years ago. So.
And that makes you a Master Gemologist?
ASA Master Gemologist Appraiser. Yeah.
Damn. So you're basically like the brain surgeon of gems, if you will.
Yeah, we're up there. I mean, there's certainly gemologists that, working for the laboratories that know far more than I do. So it's more, ASA MGA is more appraisal studies, working with anyone from the general public to banks, insurance companies, U.S. government. Anytime where there's jewelry involved in a conflict, that's what we do. We help to solve the conflict and level the ground, saying that this much jewelry is worth this much money so that you guys can solve your equation and move forward.
Yeah, and so by law you're very locked in there. You have to be super honest and...
Yeah, well, one of the requirements for being an appraiser or a qualified appraisal is objective neutrality. I can have no interest in the subject property whatsoever, right? So if you go into a gold buyer or a pawn shop or something like that and say, I would like to sell this, can you appraise it for me? I mean, that's immediately disqualifies the person that's appraising it because they want to purchase that item. They're objectively biased. So.
Okay, all right. And so now you've done some work with the U.S. Customs and the border.
I have, yeah.
That's pretty cool. See some exciting stuff up there?
Straight out of the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's some of the craziest stuff that you've come across?
I cannot tell you that, unfortunately. Right. Yeah,
sorry,
I would love to, but yeah.
Sorry, folks. Hey, I tried. You know what I mean? No doubt. Well, so what would you say are some of the big misconceptions about someone in your position? Because I'm sure you get all types of...
I would say the biggest one is that an appraiser can look at an item and immediately know what the value is, as if we have some sort of encyclopedia or dictionary or price list downloaded into our memory banks. We can say, that's I see what it, like, literally at a party, here's a diamond, tell me what the grades are and how much it's worth, and that sort of thing, which is literally impossible. Grading and identifying alone, you have to have highly specialized equipment. A master diamond set, for example. I have a set of 7 diamonds that I use for color grading. They don't make them anymore. I got this one This was graded in 1989. I was online at just the right time. An appraiser from Virginia was retiring, and I was the first one to respond and say I would like that. And it's one of the requirements of a certified gemological laboratory, which the Vermont Gem Lab is. So the color differences between diamonds is so minute, if you will, that if you're at a party and someone shows you a diamond, are they wearing a yellow shirt? Are they wearing, the color of their shirt just by holding the diamond would throw that diamond off. Not even to mention, the lighting in that environment or something like that. So given that it's literally impossible to grade anything in an environment like that, then you can move on to putting a monetary value on it, right? So a diamond by grade, if it's D flawless, say around 1 carat, if it's D flawless compared to like an SI2 F or H color somewhere in there, you're talking probably $10,000 in difference, something like that.
So the alphabet becomes pretty important in
certainly does. I'm glad I learned that one early on in my life.
Nice. That's what's up. So what are some of the different credentials that you've gotten over the years? I know you said you were certified as a Master Gemologist.
So at Revere I got CBJT, which is Certified Bench Jeweler Technician through the Jewelers of America. GIA is GG after my name, or Graduate Gemologist. And then the last is ASA MGA, and there were like a couple climbing the ladder things in the middle there.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Nice. So you're pretty happy that you went down this path?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm equally happy that I went down the path of the gems and jewelry industry, and equally happy that I went down the path of being a business for myself. Yeah. Because either one of those, without the other, could have resulted in failure or me being unhappy and changing something.
Yeah. And so now this location we're in here now is your, I believe, third, right?
This is my third location. I started in the Kilburn and Gates building. I was there for 5 years. It was okay. It's the roof leaked every time it rained, and it was ruled with an iron fist at the time. But decent for starting up. The South End Art Hop was a phenomenal event. I got over 1,000 people through my studio at one time. And mind you, this is a time where there's no internet, right? So getting people into your office or studio is really, really valuable. I was there for 5 years. Then I was at the top block of Church Street for 12 years, 13 years, something like that. Quite a long time. Really liked the location, but it was very, very small.
Yeah.
Shoebox type.
Yeah.
In fact, it was literally a broom closet before I said I want that one. He's like, you want me to get the brooms out? I'm like, do you mind?
Yeah. So, and how long have you been here in this current location?
Just over a year and 3 months.
And what's the actual address for people who might want
113 Church, or the Lunix building.
Okay, and
downtown.
You're strictly by appointment these days,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
By appointment, I buzz people in. That keeps me safe and allows my clients to be able to show me their fine jewelry without feeling distressed or things like that. So.
Yep. Yeah, there's you got it on lock, pun intended.
Yeah.
Yep. That's sweet. Well, so maybe you could tell us a little bit more about like sort of some of the things that you really enjoy about being your own business owner, besides the obvious.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to it. I certainly enjoy the freedom that it brings you. That's one of my favorites. So I think I might have set an American world record on this, I'm not sure, but I hadn't set an alarm for 14 years straight, unless it was like an airplane or like a specific like business group meeting or something like that. I hadn't set an alarm and woke up when my body told me to wake up for 14 years straight until I had a child, and then it was all over.
And then you had a different kind of alarm?
Yeah, it's a very different kind of alarm.
So congratulations.
Not a bad one. Thank you.
Your daughter is how old now?
She's approaching 2. Oh. She's 21 months.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's what's up. And so, based on the fact that this whole series we're starting now, Vermontrepreneurs, is all about, obviously, just like it sounds, people from Vermont that are our entrepreneurs. We're happy to kick things off with you and have you out here.
Hey, I'm honored.
We've been friends for over 20 years at this point.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to just get to sit down and talk a little shop.
Yeah.
Again, pun intended. Just got to excuse the dad jokes, but,
Well, we're both dads, so it might be saturated in this particular.
Yeah, no doubt. So what goes into, if somebody wants to get at you to have you make something custom, or what are some of the, what are the do's and don'ts, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, so what I do is a little bit different than your average jeweler, right? So people come in to my store sometimes, expect to be able to browse and look at different designs. And really what I do is custom design. So that's 90% of my work these days. So I create rings that there's only one like it in the world, and it was made specifically for someone.
Okay.
So I want to know what that person does as a profession. I want to know that person's hobbies, their things, religious beliefs, all sorts of depth, so I can understand how to create a piece of art or an object of art that matches that person's life, love, and style.
Yeah. That's so cool that you actually refer to it as art, because that's exactly what I was thinking. You're not just there banging out, thousands of the same thing or whatever. You're really putting your creative flow into it all. Yeah, and
it literally takes a decent amount of empathy and I don't know how to say it, heart from me. If I don't give that to the object that I'm making, it shows. It's innocuous. It doesn't express the love between two people.
Yeah.
So I had a mentor of mine long ago said something that always stuck with me, that I don't sell jewelry, I sell romance.
Wow.
And that romance is it truly is the product.
That sounds like it should be trademarked if it's not already, so lay off, folks.
TM.
Yep, TM. With that being said, so you recently started another business, or another spec of a business, called Starlust, yeah?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, that is more production, and it's based on astrology. I took every astrological symbol and combined them with each other. So the idea is still that, selling romance, and there's no better of a symbol that I've found or know of than a zodiac sign to represent a person, right? So if you have a representation of a person and you combine those two people, then you have an excellent representation of that bond between those two people. So that can be mother-daughter, husband-wife, really any relationship between two human beings.
Yeah.
BFFs, bridesmaids, something like that. And it's very personal, and it's right here. You can carry that person around with you, remember that person under anxious moments, and things of that nature. So
how many combinations are there of...
Oh, your dad and I punched that. It's a weird number too. There's 76.
Okay.
There's 76 different combinations, and it has been a roller coaster getting that together. Yeah. Your dad was probably the largest help in that process.
In terms of his CNC knowledge and whatnot.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways that you can make an item. A lot of different ways to skin a cat, so to speak. I could make each one of those combinations. I could carve it by hand out of wax. Then I could cast that, mold it. I could create it in CAD, which is what I did. 3D print that, cast it, mold it, and mold is like a rubber mold. Yeah. But I went for a different way that produces a much higher quality product, much faster. Which is CNC milling brass C360 molds to be able to inject them with a thermoplastic and cast from that. So I can bring the cost down substantially. and the resolution between a 3D printer and these is about 40 times greater.
Wow.
So the 3D printer is 4 microns. This is 1 micron, 0.001 and 0.04. If I said that correctly. So it's a higher quality, more affordable product. It was just a really difficult time creating that foundation of that part of the business.
Yeah. So how long in the making has that process been?
Over 2 years.
Okay. And now you're finally launched.
I don't know if I can say that.
No.
And everybody asks that specific question. I don't think that there's such a thing as a launch.
Okay.
Right? I don't think that, like, maybe it's like a party where people get together and say it's official, that sort of thing. But there are so many steps along the way that it's like, well, was I launched when I had a mediocre website and that I made myself and all the molds were done so I could manufacture? Is that launched? Or is it launched when I get 5,000 followers on Instagram and I'm finally featured in this and people actually know about it?
Yeah.
So there's so many, it's like, it's all gray territory, and the only black and white is like start and shut down.
So are they available now?
They are. Yep. It's
starlustjewelry.com. All right. starlustjewelry.com. And I can attest to the fact that they're beautiful pieces. I actually got one. And yeah, I was super happy with it. So thank you for that. Appreciate it very much. Where do you see kind of sky's the limit for your business on,
Well, one of the reasons I started Starlust is I saw the glass ceiling in Burlington. And when I'm selling custom engagement rings, I have to put that part of my heart in it, as we were talking before, and there's only one of me.
Yeah.
So unless I wanted to hire someone that has my same credentials and abilities, which they would never work for me, they'd start their own store. It's really, really hard in a small town like this. So I sort of saw that glass ceiling. I could, move downstairs to Church Street, start paying $5,000 a month rent, get a $150,000 build-in, pay for employees, that whole thing. But then I'd be a salesperson. Then I'd be selling things out of a case. I wouldn't be creating custom jewelry and things like that. Yeah. So thinking about that as my fate for the next 20 years wasn't particularly exciting. And I would lose my freedom too, because I have to be open those times. A lot of restrictions for brick and mortars these days.
It sounds like you really appreciate being able to have your own hours and go with your own pace.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's once you get that in your life, it's really difficult to change that.
I can relate.
Yeah.
I can relate. Yeah. No doubt. So where do you see the Starlust going? Will it be something that will always be through your own website, or will you have places?
Yeah, I mean, I have it in one store in North Carolina right now, Bailey's, and that's a tough decision whether I choose to wholesale and retail or just retail. It's tricky, and I think things in general are going more direct to consumer. B2C is more accessible every day. I mean, with Instagram, TikTok, one correct video that goes viral and you have 1 million people, 2 million people that have seen your product. And how many times of a person walking into a jewelry store to walk by a case and see that would it take? I mean, that's years and years and years of higher foot traffic to achieve the same amount of reach.
Yeah, so do you think in this age of social media and just how much everyone's online and everything, have you seen a change in the way that you conduct business?
Me personally, or people in general?
I would say for you personally.
Yeah, I mean, when I started in 2004, there was no internet. So back in the day, it was like Yellow Pages or who you know.
Yeah.
Which is kind of vicious, man. And the Yellow Pages, by the way, I think I was paying $300 a month at one point, And $300 in 2004 dollars is substantially more.
Yeah.
That makes me feel old. But and that's like to have like a quarter-page ad that they print out once in one magazine, distribute, and then you pay them $300 per month for an entire year.
Yeah. So what's your promotional? What do your promotions look like these days? Is it all just word of mouth?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't promote a lot. I don't advertise anywhere. Just having a solid website, your portfolio on there, and being listed correctly is enough exposure for someone like myself to do quite well.
Yeah. And now, what's the website that people can go to?
VermontGemLab.com.
All right, VermontGemLab.com, and we'll put a link in the description as well. But yeah, I can tell you, not only because this is a good friend of mine, but I can tell you that he takes pride in his work, and it's the highest quality, like absolutely. And like you said, you definitely put your heart into it.
Yeah. Well, if I'm not cranking things out, I can spend the time that I need to address any issues that are there.
Yeah.
So then it becomes a question of, am I lazy or do I want to actually do it correctly?
Yeah.
Which of course is the latter.
Yeah. So do you are there things that annoy you the most about, not only just being your own owner, but just the industry? Like, what are like some common requests you get where you're just like, nah, man, get out of here?
I mean, I'm of the type where no question is a bad one, and everybody has been at that point at some point in their life, so I can't be annoyed at something where I have been and literally everyone has been at some point too. There are certainly absurd requests. People call me and say, I would like something custom made today.
Oh yeah, which happened earlier when we were sitting here.
I'm sorry, that's not possible.
Yeah, so right now I hear you say you're about 8 to 10 weeks out on custom pieces.
Yep.
All right,
About
so
that.
something for people to keep in mind if
prepare a little bit.
Yeah.
If someone's trying to propose and they want something custom made in like 3 weeks, one, it's almost definitely not going to be truly custom. It's made of component parts, and your ability to actually control that design is much lower. But for someone wearing that engagement ring, it's like the boat that a lot of guys want, like the dream car or the dream boat. Like, that's how important it is. So it's not something to like you're never going to get your dream boat with the base model engine, right? You're gonna hate the thing or want to trade it in or sell it or upgrade, whatever. So to put it as a relationship thing or a relational thing, it's that important. In fact, I might argue more.
Yeah.
Cars and boats kind of change over the years, whereas that is the thing.
Yeah, hopefully you're only buying that ring once.
Absolutely. And over 19 years, I think I've had to remake rings 3 times. Not a single one was my fault.
Okay.
It was she didn't like it, which I don't know exactly what she likes or not. So
yeah. Now, so you often like sitting there hand in hand with the person as they give you the whole, or what's the process look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of guys will come in and literally be shaking. They're so nervous because they're expensive items. It's a highly subjective medium, and they don't know what to expect. They're not sure whether they're going to run into someone that wants to take advantage of them or something like that. I probably a lot of reasons why they're nervous.
Yeah.
But they're that nervous, and typically in those circumstances I can get them to calm down within 20-30 minutes of saying like, look, there's no pressure here. We're just sitting here so I can give you information that you're looking for, and if nothing else, you'll have more information when you leave.
Yeah.
So my process is definitely low pressure. I'm not interested in running a Shark Tank. I'm not interested in pushing people. And I've found that when people are pushed, they typically don't, the end product isn't exactly as they want it. You really have to be able to talk to people and get through to someone in a relaxed state versus a fight or flight state for them to really be able to open up and for me to get out of them what I need to be able to create something excellent.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you need to create this environment where they can feel comfortable, and so that you can be receptive to all kind of what they may not even know exactly what they need, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, so when someone's operating in a fight or flight mode, they're in a sort of ancient state, right? And that sort of fight or flight mode has been carried on and kept humans alive since the days that we had to run from lions. The guy that was sitting relaxed in the field, plucking flowers, he got gobbled up. The rest of us that didn't get gobbled up is because we had high anxiety and we were looking around worried about it.
And because we didn't live where there were lions, but yeah.
So it's, anxiety is a necessary thing, and it can be helpful if you know how to manage it and things like that. But it's typically not a time where you're going to be able to have deep thought. It's a very shallow thought process of like, do I fight? Do I run? And actually, now that it comes up, there is a third one called fainting goat, which a lot of us did during COVID.
Yeah.
We can't fight this virus. We can't run from the virus. So we stayed in place and we just sort of fainted and kind of shut down. In order for me to do my job to the best of my ability, I can't have my clients in that state of fear or fright or high anxiety. So environment is part of it, and really reassuring that there's no pressure, that you're not going to hurt my feelings if you don't buy from me.
Yeah.
In fact, I will literally recommend other stores that I like and respect in the neighborhood if they want to see inventory, if they want to talk to other people. And it's when people understand that they become more comfortable and they're now in control, right? And that's where I want them. It's a lot easier than the latter.
Yeah. So this space is super comfortable here. So what does a normal consultation or whatever look like?
Yeah, so I sit down with people, and I wrote an engagement ring manual, which is available on my website, and that goes through. We'll talk about stones. We'll look at inclusions in stones. We'll talk about the qualities. I'll give my opinion on what I believe qualities, what I would go for, if you will. I'll go through precious metals, show examples of all these things, and then I'll show methods of manufacturing. This is how wax is carved. This is how CAD designs are created. Here's a 3D printer. So really start to finish, here are our materials. Here's how we can assemble them. Here's the finish line, and here's what it costs at the finish line. So it's a good, typically an hour and a half of sitting down, and it's just highly informational, right. And narrowing down most of the possibilities so that we have one glimpse of where we want to end up.
And then at what point are you doing a render or whatever of
when I'm under contract? So that's a common question, particularly when people order like a standard ring, like if they want like a 4-prong solitaire. I'm not going to make that in CAD. I could show you 30 different versions of that through 50 manufacturers. So I'll order that, and some of them will be like, well, do I get a rendering of it? The rendering is actually the manufacturing of it. I'm actually manufacturing it in a 3D environment, and that actually takes longer than any other part of the process. Even more than the actual physically finishing, setting stones, anything else. Sourcing hard stones can take longer, but the most laborious part is typically the CAD rendering or that part. And I charge $600 for a CAD rendering, and that's probably the lowest hourly rate that I charge for any other service. Yeah. So. And now, where are you sourcing your materials from? Great question. It really depends on the materials. Sapphires and color stones, I have 2 dealers that I really like dealing with that source out of Sri Lanka, and one person in Thailand. Diamonds are now in 2 categories: natural or lab-grown diamonds. Lab-grown I get from New York, as well as diamonds, natural diamonds, New York and Chicago. Where the diamonds come from before that is not information that I'm particularly privy to. The KPCS process, or Kimberly Process Certification Scheme, is one measure that tracks diamonds typically from mined to manufacturer, but I'm not privy to inside of that.
So people aren't able to be like, I want a diamond that's from here, or how do people make sure that they are?
Not really. That's slowly changing. Blockchain technology is becoming more prevalent in my industry, which is great. But there is a saying, an old saying in my industry, that there's only 2 people that know where a stone came from, and that's God and the miner.
All right.
Outside of that, there are GIAs now issuing country of origin reports for diamonds, but they have to be rough. And actually have KPCS certificates, I believe. Don't quote me on that. So they're putting these pieces together on the blockchain so that we can establish that line, the blockchain technology. So we're getting there. When it comes to like colored stones, my Sri Lankan dealer is from Sri Lanka. He goes to Sri Lanka, hand selects them, and then I buy from him.
Okay.
So I can say within a reasonable, buffer that those are indeed Sri Lankan stones. I'm also trained in country of origin with inclusions inside gemstones. And we can also get GI reports that say country of origin on them.
So you're going right to the source.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, maybe a person or 2 removed, but you know, he's getting them from a miner in Sri Lanka, so yeah.
How are the conditions for mining or changing these days? Are you familiar with any?
Yeah, so that's a wonderful question. If you think about things, where do I approach that? What angle do I approach that? So if you picture like Madagascar, there are a lot of artisanal mines that are like children with, I don't know what the name of the basket is, but mining through rivers, sifting through pebbles in the river. And if we were doing that in the U.S.,
it'd be child slavery.
It would be child slavery. It would be like very, very wrong. And I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong. What I am saying is that has been done with those families for a long time, and it's how those families put food on the table. There are certainly places that. So I guess what I'm saying by that first part is the understanding of exactly what is a conflict-based thing is really subjective. Actually quite difficult.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to vary by person. There's no sound definition.
It's like, where do your morals lie?
Yeah, and we're talking about these. Look at the shoes we're wearing. Look at the minerals in the cell phones that we have. Look at the steel on the bus or car that we came over on.
Yeah.
All of these industries, like, there are some difficult things that happen in them that are overlooked because they're seen. Maybe it's that they're survival.
They're normalized.
Yeah, they're normalized. They're a survival product, not a thrival product. They're non-romantic products. So are people's moral compass only if it's a romantic thing?
Yeah.
It has to be guaranteed conflict free, because that's a pretty weird moral compass. There's a little bend in the needle on that moral compass.
Well, a lot of relationships require some bending, but so just back to the kind of running your own business and all that, since you've been doing it for, like you said, 19 years now at this point, what advice would you give to either aspiring business owners or people that are new? Like, what kind of, can you point out?
A couple things that helped me. only do it if you like what you're doing. If you're, making origami out of newspaper over and over, like, might be cool for the first, 30 origamis, but by the 2000th, I could pretty much guarantee that you're going to be pretty miserable. Yeah. So you really need to have a love for what you're doing. Money is necessary, so even if it's romantic and fun, there is always that facet of being funded and being able to survive. When it comes to that survival, I would find one thing that you do, one thing that's you can withstand doing over and over that produces decent money. So one way that I discovered that or figured that out, I was at a point, it was like year 5, and I was sort of teetering, and I was trying to figure out whether to go for it or not. And I said, well, I'm 5 years in, I'm gonna send it as hard as I can. So I bought a laser welder, which was $30,000, more money than I'd ever spent in my life. Most of my friends are buying cars and, doing things like that. I bought a laser welder. Yeah. And I moved to Church Street at the same time. And the laser welder, in order to pay for that, I went around to all of the eyeglass shops. And I said, I know that you're in the business of selling new eyeglasses, but I also know that you have some clients that can't afford new frames. Sometimes you'll break them. Things happen. If I create a flyer that has my map, a map of where to find me and my information on the back, and a $5 off gift certificate on the front, would you give those to your clients for broken frames?
And what's their incentive there to do that?
Well, they want to help their clients. Their client can't afford a new pair of frames. So it was a little niche that I found that the laser welder could do better than anything else. Laser welders, they can weld at a 0.2 to 2 millimeter range. It's literally a beam of light that's hotter than the surface of the sun for millionths of a second. Oh. So I can weld the bridge of eyeglasses perfectly straight, really strong welds. And that person can get another 2 years on those eye frames when they can't afford a $500-$600 pair new. Okay.
Now, is that a service that you still offer?
It's not.
No.
But during my heyday of that, I was probably doing, during the summer was always heavier, people were more active. So I was doing two to three a day. So that was, and they were $50 a pop for a repair, and I offered a 1-year warranty and things of that nature. So I was making $150 a day just repairing eyeglasses. Did I love repairing eyeglasses? No, yeah. But it was bearable. I was still using a cool piece of machinery. I got a few engagement rings from repairing people's eyeglasses, sunglasses too.
So is that part of what you would advise people is like when you're getting started, take on what you have to kind of just get things flowing? And then
again, if you can't bear it, like, you're not going to last. You will eventually mentally break down. I mean, at least I would.
But would you say there were some things that you had to do at the time, like, for example, welding eyeglasses?
Yeah, that was a little bit of a sacrifice.
Yeah.
But it was bearable. It paid for the laser plus rent most of the time. Yeah. So I now had like a bare operating line where I'm like, okay, as long as I do eyeglasses, I can survive. That means that now I can concentrate on learning CAD. I can concentrate on getting my MGA degree. I can concentrate on whatever I want to over here because I know that this is set up and I know that I'm going to be fine doing this.
Yeah.
And just for your mentality, knowing that you're going to be okay while running a business is hugely important.
Yeah.
I mean, anxiety can be a killer. It can really stop you in your tracks.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're required to sell romance.
Yeah.
You cannot be anxious while doing that.
Yeah. I mean, these other people are showing up and they already have no clue. You got to at least be the one who's got it together there.
Absolutely.
Now, in terms of back to the whole business end of things, how important is it to have, a good accountant or good money management, and what's your sort of approach on all that, Ben?
So you need to learn a stupid amount of skills, like stupid amount of skills. At least I did in order to survive. I didn't have a huge budget. I didn't have, you know, a building given to me or anything like that. So I had to learn how to write HTML. You know, that was not my thing.
Yeah.
I had to learn how to use Photoshop quite well to create postings, advertisements, things like that. I had to learn QuickBooks. I had to learn, you know, a laundry list of things. So I would say that would be another point of advice that I would give for people that are just starting. Be perfectly comfortable with the learning process and know that you're going to learn a lot of things, and give yourself a break because it's going to take a lot of time.
Yeah. And at what point would you say a business owner should kind of be seeing, I know in the restaurant industry they usually say it's about 3 years. How long should people give themselves before, if it doesn't seem like it's working, maybe they need to pivot and kind of...
I would say that's entirely on the you know, financials and the way that business is doing. I don't think there's any good like format for saying like quit or try something else, but learning to pivot is a huge skill. Learning to pivot for me means not having too much attachment on one specific thing and being able to let that go with very little grief in order to change or get to where you need to go. Yeah. A small example was I originally wanted to call Starlust star-crossed jewelers, right? Old Romeo and Juliet sort of thing, star-crossed lovers. I dropped the lovers because I wanted it to be two people. And I tried to get that trademark and I got denied. Someone had owned it, and I'm not surprised because it's quite a popular term. I was a little bit upset about that and didn't know what to do. And Starlust popped into my head one day, never looked back. And then it was just that little ability to change your rudder, to just pivot a little bit, is really, really important. Right. Particularly in today's society where things are changing at an exponential rate.
What type of programs are there in Vermont that either you have utilized or that you're familiar with that, you know, whether there be gathering of the minds or just business-wise that you could maybe point people in that direction?
When you first start, CEDO is Community and Economic Development Office is great. They'll show you structure. They'll say, well, you need an LL. Well, they're not going to give you legal advice, but they'll say you need a business entity. You need to have an LLC or an S Corp or something of that nature. Yeah. Generator Space is also, we're lucky to have them. There's a couple of programs that they've launched recently. Launch VT, I think, is one of them. Okay. There's a few different other, not maker spaces, but what is the name for group offices, if you will. Okay. There's VSET, Hula just started. So there's, I mean, if I had started today, I would have been thrilled because there's an incredible amount of resources that are available today compared to 2004. 2004, unless I missed something, which there's certainly that possibility.
Yeah, there wasn't a plethora.
There was none of this. There was not group space. There were no maker spaces. CEDO was around. SIBO was around. Earlier years, BNI, Business Networking International, is a really good one. That's phenomenal for networking. And it's right to the point networking, saying we want to make money and we want to do it by, if I make you money, you're going to want to make me money, and we create this relationship. Yeah. And gosh, I have clients still have clients that I met in BNI 15 years ago.
That's awesome.
So
that's awesome. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that you've done some charity work.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the pieces that you've made? And
Yeah, I mean,
you're
I
really
donate
proud of
pieces almost every year. I've done them for many kennels, the LGBTQ plus community, several schools, online raffles. The last one I did was for Turning Point Center. I was really happy. I think that was auctioned for somewhere around $5,500 for that one during their annual auction before the apocalypse.
Yep.
So that's helping substance abuse, folks suffering from substance abuse in the area.
Yep. So how do people? What does that relationship look like? Do they just approach you and then you kind of decide what you want to make, and are you?
Yeah, well, it's a little of both. I do get approached from different organizations, and some I not interested in supporting.
Yeah.
But for the majority, if I can, I'll do what I can.
Yeah. Now I know this isn't a cue to tell everyone out there, hey, hit him up because he does free work or whatever, but I just think it's important to acknowledge the fact that you have been doing great things in our community. And
one of my favorites is actually an orphanage in South Africa that I've supported for several years now. I do have a piece that I just made that I will be auctioning fairly soon.
Okay.
To support that orphanage.
And is that information at Vermont Gem Lab?
I'll put it up there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll put a link as soon as I set that up.
Okay.
But yeah.
And once again, we'll have links in the description for both Starlust and the Vermont Gem Lab. Also, somewhere in here, we can throw in some slides of some of your work and whatnot.
Appreciate that.
Cool.
Thank you.
But we really appreciate you coming out today, or actually having us come in, I should say.
Yeah.
And it's been great to just catch up. Is there anything else you feel like folks should know about the business end of things, or? I mean, obviously that's a pretty loaded question.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack. You learn so much being in business for yourself. I would say one of the greatest hurdles for me that took me a long time to get over was letting go of your competitors and not being angry or upset about your lack of privilege, maybe you can say.
Yeah.
I was upset for probably well over a decade because a lot of the other stores in the area were given a building, with apartments above. So you're guaranteed to exist and thrive.
But you can't control that.
You can't control that. Yeah, it's something that, you're only slowing yourself down there. They're not angry about you being angry,
Yeah.
right? So you're spending your time being angry about something that's only inside of you and that you're only holding on to.
Yeah.
So learning to let that go, that was tricky for me because I grew up so poor, and that it's sort of like part of growing up poor that you're forever seeking something. You're forever saying, why not me? Why not me?
Absolutely.
And letting go of that is really important in order to be the person that you want to be, and focusing on that person that you want to be. And if you think of it like the best version of yourself, they're so far past worrying about their competitors because they're in front of it. They've already surpassed it.
Yeah.
And that person is definitely not stuck in the past or worrying about what I might say gently as petty things.
Yeah.
But it's not petty. It's damage from your past that's hard to come to terms with. You really have to look that bear right in the eyes and say that sucked that happened to me. That sucked. But there's no use in me carrying that on into the next years of my life.
Yeah, focus on what you want, not what you don't want.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that's a good point to wrap it up here. Once again, we're with Kennon Young from the Vermont Gem Lab. And we will put the links in the description. And it's such a pleasure to set off the Vermontrepreneur edition with you, my brother. No doubt.
Hugs, bro.
Golden hour. This is a one-of-a-kind guest, Mr. Kennon Young.
Thanks for having me.
We out.
Yeah.